Yeah, so they're shuffled up, wishing each other the best, and let's see if they like their opening hands.
I mean, it's kind of hard to not like your opening hand as Andy.
Oh,
Got 9 cards.
Hollis proved me wrong. Triple Silencer is a hand that can be drawn, apparently.
It's not awful. They're worse. No, they're
No,
worse.
Hollis did not agree with that statement. Triple Silencer into Ghost Runner.
Thanks, Obama. Cavis looks like he's not really sure here.
Both kind of studying their hands. John feels happy with his hand.
They are going to go with it then.
All right, so we're rolling with the we're keeping openings.
Sweep? Nope.
That's a shame. Do we draw into the sweep?
Nope.
No, we did not.
Almost as good.
Oh, there we go.
We already had
Slow rolled it. Okay.
Gave him that false hope.
Oh, yeah.
Caps is like, yeah. Oh.
So all the midway stations and sands belong to
He still has an
John.
action. And Ice's R&D.
Okay.
All right. Ballsy, leaving HQ open against Criminal. Andy of all things.
That's a bold move. I mean, even with the sweeps week money, a fistful of account siphons could be meaningful.
It's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out for him.
So looks to be the startings of a pretty strong Andy opener.
You know, John's heart is just sitting there pounding, please don't have it, please don't have it, please don't have it,
Yeah.
please don't have it.
And we see it. We see the account siphon in the corner. But, Mike, I'm curious, does he run it for fear of Scorched Earth? If he thinks he's playing a Scorched deck, I bet he hangs on to that account siphon because he doesn't want to clear tags.
I mean, well, yeah. Because, yeah, with the Andy, you want to play out all these cards in your hand, but to get that first turn account siphon, you're giving up 3 clicks, right? So you're going to end up discarding a lot of cards.
So, yeah. We get the business show online, and my guess is, you know, if he doesn't ice up HQ, my guess is we're going to get siphon going beginning of next turn. So I'm sure John's got to be thinking about that as he looks at the cards. So bottom's a Beal, and let's see what he got.
Hopefully he keeps an ice. No ice in hand.
My guess is, yeah, installed to draw a card. Let's see if we can find ice. We see a midway station instead.
I mean, I almost want to take my second click and draw again. You really need some ice here. It's criminal.
Now, you know, because even rezzing assets in response to the siphon, I mean, he doesn't have enough on the board to be able to have this not impact him. So I think he drew. Oh wow!
He puts it in front of R&D.
I'm surprised.
I think John might look back at this later and.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
that.
the play. Now I didn't see the ice that he drew, but whatever it is, I think, you know, to me, I would absolutely bluff it over HQ as a threat of, hey, you might not, even if it's a wraparound, you might not get in if you don't have the breakers.
John's going to hit us up on Facebook later. Guys, I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, I got this.
No, he's just sitting there waiting.
Now, you know, I'm sure he's played against enough criminals today to kind of know what the threat that's coming is, but it seems like a very interesting play that he protected R&D that much.
And you see in the top left of your screen, right, Zach looks a little confused. Like, he knows that this is a weird play. I think part of him is going, why is he not protecting HQ?
So Sand down. Zach at 7 credits at this point. Yeah, just really studying that hand to say, what in the world could he be leaving HQ? Takes the business show out, which I like.
Okay. So now he's down to 2 clicks left. So I think now we can kind of safely assume that siphon's not coming. Yep. But now I kind of question why Zach isn't siphoning. Apparently we don't know how to play this game.
Apparently this is some next level play. Apparently. Yeah, I'm certain he's fearful of the Scorch, but still, even if you have the Scorches, if you don't have any money, it's kind of tough to kill your opponent.
All right, well, he finally gets some.
Right.
Finally puts on HQ.
So
no
now
longer has a city grid, no longer has a DBS.
Now here's the problem. I mean, going against Grail, and he doesn't know that's what he's running against. But now, Grail, the problem is once you get iced up, you've got to have all your breakers before you can safely run because you're a Merlin or a Lancelot away from having your board state wrecked.
Yeah, or your face.
Yeah.
3 takes pad campaign. Leave it there.
Yeah, so far, I mean, every card Zach has seen is standard vanilla NEH. So
yeah,
at this point,
he has no clue what's about to hit him.
I think he's afraid of the Scorch deck, but I don't think he has any real information. He hasn't seen any cards that would suggest he's playing anything outside of, frankly, his deck.
I mean, on the plus side for Zach, I mean, John hasn't seen any Merlin, so he knows the Tri-Wizard's not going to kill him.
Yeah. So we're going to take a mandatory. I see a license acquisition in his hand. That could be interesting later to get that Sansan or the Midway back online.
Plays license
Very spicy. And hey, people with Sansans in their deck.
People in second place at the regional, right?
That's exactly right. We just need to get on their level, Randall.
Need to get out of the booth and get in the field.
Yeah, but we do see the Sansan in the trash, so it could be relevant later if he's able to advance the score. I mean, I've seen John play this deck, and having 2 res Sansans, not a bad place to be.
Right. Well, just as we talk about this whole, Grail needing your entire rig set up, I mean, Cavis has a Corroder down. He has a Fairy down. He still needs a Code Gate Breaker, and he needs a more consistent Sentry Breaker, but I think I did see the Switchblade in his hand. So Hartman is kind of running out of time here.
I think he's looking to just overdraw, clean up his hand a little bit, drew a lot of agendas, so, looking for Jackson to kind of reset him.
He's really wishing that he could see some of those, right? He's had this big scoring window. Like, Zach has given him this opening this entire early game, and he just can't come across an agenda to capitalize on it. Or at least not AstroScript. I mean, obviously we've seen acquisitions and things, but he can't get the train rolling.
Yeah, what'll be interesting is when John finally establishes a remote and actually protects it with ice, does Zach challenge that, or does he face check that?
Yeah. And I mean, he's running on R&D here, and I almost wonder if John is even going to res any kind of Grail Ice he may have. I mean, it's still 0-0. He still has plenty of time. He doesn't want Cavis to be able to see what he's got until he's ready.
Shows him a hedge fund. So, again,
still plain old nothing.
Plain old vanilla NEH at this point. All right, so he's going to force the Jackson shuffle. Can't see what he put in, but I'm guessing
at least one of them was agendas.
Yep.
Yeah, Sansan, yep.
That is, I mean, he has the daily business show. It's interesting, though, because usually, I mean, having the Sansan in there for a license acquisition, I mean, it's a potential consideration of having one in the bin that's available for you. But, again, it's certainly getting it in hand at this point. It's very relevant to score that first Astro script.
Yeah, I don't think he's too upset about it being spent on a daily business show instead.
Not a bad card to have on the board either.
Pretty good secondary.
All right, so Zach just wanting to make sure he knows how many Jacksons have been used. And we've got the Biotic in hand. So, certainly that sweeps week money helped propel John enough to the point where, if he draws Astro script, Biotic is absolutely live. Draws another Grail Ice.
So now he's kind of hoarding those for that big hit.
Yeah,
and I wonder, right? Like, so I made a post on the Netrunner Facebook group a few days ago about sportsmanship and not telling people other people's decks and things that rely on surprises. So I wonder, if somebody has mentioned, man, this guy's playing, a Grail in the H. It's so crazy, right? Does Zach even know that that's in the field, much less that it's John's deck?
I think he put the Lancelot over the remote. So, I didn't see another piece of ice in his hand, so I might be wrong. But, I mean, he's got the Fury to protect himself.
Yeah, like I said, I'm really curious as to whether he even res resistant shows his hand.
Yeah, he's thinking about it.
I mean, worst case scenario, what did he put down there? I mean, whatever he put is going to be a hefty trash cost. And Zach only has 6 credits.
Yeah. Yeah, he's thinking about it hard. I think you're very right.
He's going to let him have it here.
Midway. Oh, okay. Yeah, so he reveals the Lancelot, and, he's going to have to pay up to use the Fairy. Because every time you break a subroutine, even if it doesn't cost you anything to break, it adds 1 to the cost. And if he's, I don't know if he's got Grail Ice in hand to reveal, but I think probably caught Zach a little off guard.
But now, I mean, you're kind of at this point where, you don't want to tip your hand as John, but Zach has not really looked at his hand, and he does not know how much is in there, and he does not know how much is on the board. So now he knows that this is a Grail deck.
Yeah.
So he knows he needs to go find that Code Gate Breaker, and he knows that his fairies are no good anymore. So John may have just bought himself a couple of turns while Zach, the light bulb kind of goes off in his head of this is what he has to do.
Yeah, and that's a big tempo hit for Zach. I mean, clearly chooses to trash the Midway Station grid, not wanting to have to go back and get it later. But still, I mean, he's at 1 credit now, and that's a fairly sizable tempo hit, even with the security testing build back up. He doesn't have Desperado on the board, so he's not printing money every time he makes a successful run.
Yeah, and if he can hit any ice and put it over archives, right, that security testing is going to be weakened even more. I mean, Andy's at 2 credits. and that's just not a place you see her often, especially this far into the game.
Yeah, and the fun part about this for John, you could install anything on archives, and you're representing the threat of Merlin at this point.
Yeah.
If you've got Merlin in hand, I mean, Zach, he can't make that run. The fairy's off the board, and even, again, I mean, I can't see in his hand. I think I see the Switchblade, and he's got some stealth credits, but still, I mean, you don't want to burn your Ghost Runner credits just trying to do a security testing run. So at this point, I mean, I think John's representing a pretty significant threat.
Right, and it's not like the sentries we saw before. You know, last time he normally plays NEH, you're not really worried about the sentry. Sure, you can put your Switchblade down and it'll deal with it without the extra credits. You need those credits now because you know there are legitimately threatening sentries in this deck. John, I think, is just kind of begging for an Astro in the back of his mind here. I mean, you have the Biotic. I think you may have a little time. Do you start scoring out any agenda you can as John right now just to put some pressure on?
So 2 face-down pad campaigns. Did he overdraw and discard those earlier?
Yeah, I think he did.
Okay.
Yeah, Zach hasn't discarded anything from the board. I mean, the only things he got were that Sansan earlier and the Daily Business Show, which is back. But now he has no fairy to get in. He has all of 4 credits, and I don't know that Daily Business Show is going to be quite worth that to him.
Yeah. I mean, John, he could go to 0. He's within Biotic Astro range. Don't see if he has it in hand, though. Been holding that Biotic for a little while.
Did you happen to see what he I was going to ask if you saw what he put down, but I assume he's about to show us.
I'm sure we're going to see it very soon. Uh-oh.
Hey, by the way, I have a second Biotic.
Shipment. There we go.
There we go.
Okay. So Shipment in 1. A Beal. Okay.
Yeah, and you hear that kind of sigh relief. Oh, thank God it wasn't AstroScript. John goes, it's not as bad as you thought.
It's interesting. I mean, you know, if I'm Zach, I've got to believe that he's flooded. If he's willing to go, but that's the thing is he showed them, he mistakenly showed them the Biotic, and he's not.
And I think that's the only reason he was willing to put that Beal out is because he needs to get rid of cards everything, and he has that second Biotic there because he's going to start drawing for an agenda, and you need to clear up that hand space for those Grail Ice to be able to show.
So here's Zach trying to figure out where his best place to.
There's a second security testing that's on HQ now.
Dan clearly not anxious to go there. Does not have his breaker suite out at the point. Too much in the way of threats from Grail Ice at this point to be able to safely make that run.
I think one of Zach's buddies is leaving here.
I say that, but John's on. He went low on credits, so Merlin's not live at this point. Lancelot's not live.
Yeah, and Zach jumped back up to 8 credits while we weren't looking. Now he has Switchblade on the board. He still has 5, but he still needs that Code Gate Breaker that he can't really find.
Yeah, the midway station's down, but that is the beauty of the card. I mean, Switchblade, you expect to have that on the board and basically be able to run through sentries for free, but with midway, it at least makes you have some real money to be able to back that up. So interesting to see if John tries to get that going again at some point. I mean, he's got the other Biotic in hand, so I'm sure his plan at this point, get the hedge fund, get in range of that, try to fade an account siphon, and he's got the other Biotic. So, I mean, absolutely able to, once he gets an Astro in hand, just Biotic that out.
And I feel really bad for John here because, he's seen a reasonable amount of his deck, and he hasn't seen any AstroScript. He hasn't really been pressured on that R&D much, and you got to think if he had seen an AstroScript, this game would be completely different, right? Like, Cavis may be a lot farther behind than he is now. As it stands, he's pretty good. Yeah. But if John had hit an AstroScript at this point, he'd be up to 4, 5, 6 points maybe at this time.
Yeah, the nice part, so Zach, I think double account siphon in his hand. At this point,
he's probably figured out that this is not Scorched.
Yeah,
right?
you've seen enough influence at this point. You're not playing against Scorched Earth.
I mean, he really hasn't seen that much influence, to be honest, but he's seen one piece of Grail Ice, and you can pretty safely assume that the other ones are going to be there.
If you see midway station grid, I kind of assume that the player has committed all in on the Grail Ice plan, and, not worth it to just pack one Scorch in your deck. So trying to get the Yogg, okay. Make it free to go through those pop-ups now. It'll still get John the free credit every time he goes through it. It'll help Zach from a security testing standpoint, but I'm sure John will be happy to just get paid while he gets security tested on.
I mean, and now Zach has kind of gotten that Andy board set up where you expect it to be. But normally, and this is the weird thing, right? Andy normally gains money by making these cheap runs, and ultimately the money just snowballs. Well, Andy's not getting the cheap runs now, right? So she's actually having to pay for some of these multiple subroutine ice. The only cheap thing she's going to get is archives.
Yeah.
So you can't really rely on him to let that money snowball as much as he normally would, and Zach John may be able to keep him within some reasonable, balance, some reasonable distance.
I think he's in a good spot, Zach is at this point, because you can play the siphon control game. He puts Yogg out, and so I think if you can keep the money low, he doesn't have one of his R&D interfaces out. What would be ideal is if you could just siphon, drop the R&D interface. You're floating through the pop-up for free. And presumably the ice that's in the back on R&D is not something that if you're siphon that John can afford to res, and so you get a couple of free looks off R&D, and certainly if he can control his money with siphon, John's not in range to be able. He hasn't scored the first Astro yet, so to keep him out of biotic range is pretty important.
And yep, that's what he's going to do. He's just going to run into the R&D. Not going to actually account siphoning first, so I think he may still be scared of Scorch, which is a little weird. Or he just doesn't want his security testing to go away.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So it goes down to 3 to res the Galahad. We have a Merlin.
Shows a Merlin, yep. So he spends data sucker counter to bring it down, spends a couple of credits, goes through.
So we're going to draw. All right, and gets the silencer, so he's getting that permanent stealth credit online. Yeah, I am very interested to see, how long he's been holding these siphons. He's been very patient. I think at this point, you need to play it. You can't leave him at 9 credits. You've seen the biotic already. There's no way I'm leaving him at the end of this turn with 9 credits.
Yeah, and at this point, he's gotten enough of a lead, right, that hitting that double account siphon and letting the tags float, not the end of the world. Obviously, you don't want to leave him forever, but if you can get him down to 0, he can't trash both your security testings. Siphon him twice and then take your next entire turn just clearing tags. You'll probably lose 1 security testing, but John's going to lose a lot more tempo than you will.
One thing, so we've seen Zach play the closed accounts on camera earlier today. Do you think he's thinking in the back of his mind, could I be playing against a singleton closed accounts on the other side? I mean, obviously it's a power card, and Zach's made the most of it, and it's gotten him this far. So I've got to imagine he's at least thought of that as he's been holding on.
And, I mean, it's NBN. If anybody's going to have it, he's going to have it.
Okay, just wanted to give you an update. Michael Norman won his match. Who was he playing? I'm sorry, I couldn't see. But he won his match, so he's making his way through the losers bracket. So we'll get back to the moment. Just wanted to update you on the standings.
So back in this game, account siphon went through 2 of them in a row. Yep. He did do the back-to-back. He is sitting on 4 tags, and it looks like he is going to float them.
Because, we've got the permanent Century Breaker online at this point. So, and this is one of the things, a lot of people, I think Zach's version of this deck very interesting because he is playing Data Sucker instead of Cloak. Everybody looks at Stealth Andy and says, well, okay, that means I absolutely must play, full-on Stealth. But you can see he's just chosen to make use of the Silencer, still playing Yogg and playing Data Sucker to get things down within Silencer range. Okay. So Michael beat Chris. Michael's runner, so his Kate beat Chris, the Blue Sun. So
and that's very sad. I think he's gone.
Yeah, I think that's going to do it for Chris.
I was rooting so hard.
Chris has been a fan favorite today. He's done a great job on stream.
He's been a Randall favorite.
Yep.
Moment of silence for Wizard. All right, that's enough. Back to the game. Cav's putting on extra pressure on R&D, still using his security testings over here on archives to try to get a little bit of credits back up again. I mean, he's still 11, he's still at a decent amount, but that's not really you really expect to see Andy. You expect to see him up in those mid to high 20s. But this NBN ice really porous. The 20 credits not really necessary. Just nice to have a little safety net.
And other side of the losers bracket, we've got the Ross Ahmed annual grudge match occurring.
And one of them is going to be gone after that.
And
it hurts.
And I'm going to hear the tilt on one side, no matter how that turns out. So very excited to see what the result of that's going to be.
Oh, if Ahmed loses, everyone will hear the tilt.
Oh, yes.
We'll hear it in the booth. It's as if 1,000 souls all cried out at once, and then were immediately silenced. John looking through his cards. He's trying to think ahead here, I believe. Trying to figure out how to get out of this hole, because it's hit that point in the game where Andy can run anywhere.
Yeah.
She's kind of in control of the board, so you have to come up with some clever play to throw her off her game. Otherwise, you're just going to get slowly whittled down.
Yeah, so we've taken Jackson, which would have been nice, but that's the thing is I don't believe we've seen a legwork in this game, and I assume that Zach's got more coming. So you're at the point where he can kind of pick his shots to say, do I want to try and take a look at R&D, and if I feel like he draws up enough cards, he can try and dig for the legwork and steal this game away.
I mean, on the upside, John is at least at enough credits right now, that especially after these pop-up windows. He has 6 credits. He needs 1 more, and he'll be able to actually biotic out something from hand.
Yeah.
And once he biotics out the first Astro, suddenly, this lock on his hand is not really a big deal. The legwork is not really a big deal because he's going to be able to throw stuff in as he gets them. But Zach seems to be alternating kind of between R&D and HU, which is, what he needs to do if he can.
And the thing that John has going for him, I mean, I don't think Zach is playing any same old things in his deck. So
right.
He has withstood the storm of account siphons. I mean, there's one more in the deck somewhere, but, realistically speaking, John's got to say, okay, I got double siphon, that happened. But at this point, he is in a position to at least not have his money as significantly threatened as it was.
Yeah, he's back
before.
up to reasonable count. I mean, 6 is not reasonable for most decks, but for these NEH decks, they are, especially if you're packing shipment from Sansan.
Yep.
And looks like he's going to put a toll booth over whatever this is. I think he's just trying to empty out his hand at this point of things that aren't Grail Ice. Plus, if he puts the piece of ice over it, maybe that'll tempt Zach to run it, and you can at least tax his credits. Or not his credits, but his clicks. Sorry. And I don't know what's happening outside there, but apparently something exciting is happening in one of our other games. Maybe one of our people in the field will come in and let us know. I think we're about to find out.
Ross beat Ahmed. Pulls a future perfect off a side game. Okay.
Ahmed is not going to be happy. So I think he'll be going to Louisville next week.
Yeah.
And Durham 2 or 3 weeks after that. He's going to keep playing until he gets his regional.
It's going to happen. But congratulations to Ross. Sounds like a very exciting game. All right.
He pays big money for that Merlin.
He's got the Grail in hand.
Knock it down. Got to tax it a little bit, and even with the most taxes, you can't.
Oh, wow. That was a bold move.
I don't know. I wonder if he should have even put an ice in front of that. Ice just kind of says, come and get it. Maybe if he had just put it down blank, Zach might have been like, it's economy,
just try
whatever.
To draw a card, think it's a pad campaign or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you can kind of hear John on the stream. I think he's kind of accepted where the game's at right now.
This ain't looking good for John, that's for certain. But I agree. I mean, I think sometimes, the ice in front of it kind of draws the runner's attention to something that they may have otherwise just said, well, forget this, I'm going to go dig R&D some more.
Yeah, he can't even tax him. I mean, he's showing the 2 cards out of his hand, and Zach has lost all the 3 credits over 2 runs and just continued to gain data sucker counters.
Yeah. At this point, I mean, Zach's just got to, he'd like to draw CNR R&D interface. I mean, obviously that'd make these runs a little bit more efficient, but, I mean, you've taken the Astro. John's only on 2 points. I mean, Zach is clearly in the driver's seat at this point.
I almost wonder if Zach doesn't need to just play stuff out of his hand onto the board, because John is in such a behind state that he can't play those sweep leagues.
Yeah.
Right, Zach doesn't need, he's not playing against big net damage.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The only net damage is going to come from those Grail Ice, and you know how much those cost. You know how to mitigate that. I wonder if he just needs to empty his hand down a little bit. I mean, any assets puts on the board for economy, you're just going to snipe out.
Dan, I mean, protecting R&D because he knows, I think both players know where the agendas are at this point. But But like you said, I mean, it's really tough at this point. Once that criminal run engine gets going, and Yogg certainly proving its worth. I mean, honestly, it's an icebreaker that I think a lot of people have soured on since regionals, certainly last year, and even since World Championships. I think you're seeing it cut from a lot more lists, but this is the situation where it does
powerful.
work. Yeah,
right,
very powerful.
I mean, you need Data Sucker in to really get the full effect out of it because people are still putting in Lotus Fields. They're still putting in these 4 strength ice. But if you are willing to invest the deck space for the 2 of them, it's still super strong.
Yeah, so we're adding some subroutines. We've got another Galahad on board.
And I mean, like I said before, if he had hit either one of these Astro scripts or any Astro script earlier in the game, it may be a lot different. John had a good position early. And sometimes the agendas just don't come when you need them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you see, Zach is very committed to getting value off of these security testings. I'm curious, he doesn't have his Desperado online, doesn't have an RDI out, so, very curious, and maybe we'll talk to him a little bit later to get his thoughts on, why the commitment to the security testing. I mean, there's certainly money left in his deck, and, Desperado to make it 3 credits a run on a security testing, not a bad place to be.
Well, I think with the security testings, right, if you run R&D and you see 1 card, and you run HQ and you see 1 card, what are you going to do with your other 2 clicks? Right, like you're still making money, and it does you no good to run back to R&D. Sure, you can run HQ 3 and 4 times, but I don't think that he honestly believes the agendas are there.
No, I agree. Yeah, HQ is clearly not a place to go. So, John drawing up, restructure, a little far away from that at this point.
It just takes 3, yeah. And that's kind of where he's at right now.
All right, so we're drawing a card. All right, so here, this is where the Earthrise, it's a bit of a tempo hit, but I think this would be a nice one to just have some nice passive draw if he sees the RDI. So, yeah, I think Zach's going to be real happy with that draw.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the driver's seat. He could wait and stall this game out. But the longer he's out, the longer it is for John to come up with some kind of answer, something, anything. And if he can go ahead and close that game out while he's in a commanding position, then that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, so we're not making a new server. Trying to get Business Show online, but Zach's shown he's been very aggressive with running everything that gets put out there. So I don't know if that daily Business Show is long for this world.
And I mean, for all of his running and all of his economy, Zach still only has 6 credits right now.
I mean, you see the difference. Desperado has not hit the board at any point. I mean, as many runs as he's made, that 1 credit a run certainly adds up. But we do have the R&D interface now, which is definitely relevant.
And especially with DBS out.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're going to see 2. They're going to draw anything that's not an agenda. You're going to see a fresh 2 every time.
Yeah. He's also got the legwork
we talked about earlier, yeah.
I mean, I've got to assume Zach, he's already looked at 1 card. I've got to assume he knows that, John doesn't either have the money and probably doesn't have anything in hand at this point. So I don't know that he thinks that's his best bet at this point.
Here we go.
Okay,
Legworks
he's going to
sure.
try.
Why not? I mean, if he's about to start locking R&D,
yeah,
he wants to
fair.
make sure that HQ doesn't have anything in it before he gets the lock started.
That's fair. I mean, every one of these security testing runs over archives, I mean, you can see how much work pop-up does, right? I mean, it's paying John off, and it's not taxing Zach at all, but certainly, I mean, John's getting paid every time it happens, and I'm sure Zach's got to be mindful of the fact that if he gets him in the biotic range, he's seen it in hand before, so he knows that it's there.
Yeah, and I mean, 1 more run on a pop-up window, and he's in biotic range.
And I mean, I think that is John's best path to victory at this point, is to somehow, whether, just getting Zach to ignore R&D for a little bit, just top deck an Astro script. I mean, NBN can still win games by just top decking agendas at the right time, and, biotic in hand and money, it's certainly a way to get there with these pop-ups.
I almost wonder if he does not have a number of cards, he can just install 3 remote servers and make Zach waste a turn running each of them in sequence because he can't let him buy, just to buy himself a turn for DBS to go find some agendas.
I mean, because Zach's on 4 credits. I mean, he's not loaded at this point. Clearly, the security testing engine is online in full force, but You know, I think John, he's got a pretty aggressively draw. You just faded a legwork, so you know you've got to believe, okay, he may not have another one in hand yet, or may think that John's not holding anything. So, you know, if I'm him, now's the time that I start to get a little bit more aggressive on my draw.
Yeah, I mean, he could take up his entire turn here, draw 3 cards, and that would not be an awful play just because he can, you know, mitigate this lock that's about to happen, make Zach take a couple more turns to run at his hand. I mean, he has some extra ice in that hand that he's not going to be able to use. He has a lot of things that once they hit the board, then they're not going to really help his position a lot.
You know, what's funny, that restructure looked pretty stranded a few turns back, but here we
ta-da,
go.
right?
We're a click away, and yeah, we're right back in range.
We're not even clicking away anymore. He gave him the last one off the pop-up.
So, yeah.
Yep.
You know, this is pop-up is my favorite ice for a reason, and it's for stuff like this. It just taxes you a little bit at a time and just creeps you back in range.
Yeah, meanwhile, Zach is still down at 8.
Yeah, I mean, this is Zach is absolutely doing the right thing. I mean, the agenda is he's got a feeler in R&D at this point, but and this is not a cheap server to run through for as little as John spent to make it.
Does Zach have Parasites in his deck? Because
I don't believe so.
Pretty good against these Galahads here.
I know we've seen Ross on stream earlier. He's playing the Parasite version. You're exactly right. I mean, this eats most of the Grail decks alive. We got Astro.
Another Astro, man.
Eek. Well, that is the thing. R&D interface, still a good card. Yeah, so at this point, I mean, I guess the good news is there is still an Astro script left in the deck.
John's just thinking, I couldn't have one, just one of them.
Yeah.
Really? I'll trade you.
Yeah, you know, at this point, I mean, you can't go back right away as Zach, but to me, yeah, take credits, get back there as quickly as you can.
Yeah, you are no longer in a hurry.
Yeah.
Not only are you ahead on agendas, but now you have one less Astro script to worry about. You are no pressure at all.
All right, so restructure. So all the money he could ever spend just needs that
he's
last
start
Astro.
dumping ice down in R&D, yeah. That's where it is.
Yeah, if he can buy himself a couple turns, I mean, he is firmly behind at this point because there's not a lot of live draws left in the deck. The problem is, I mean, you've got 2 Beals gone, and so, you know, there's not a whole lot of 3-2 agendas left in the deck.
But Zach still only has 3 credits.
Yeah.
Somehow he has managed to tax this Andy deck with an almost full rig down to a reasonable credit sum.
So I'm going to keep the double security testing runs going to try and get back into this as quickly as possible.
Now, do you see what ice that was that he put over R&D? Is that,
I did
I
not.
know he's had a Tolbert in his hand for a little while.
I think he's drawn enough Grail at this point to still add 2 subroutines.
I don't think he even cares what they are at this point. He's just like subroutines.
Yeah, because Merlin does no good because of Yogg, so I've got to imagine it's, you know, he's had the 3rd Galahad all game, so I'm guessing it may have been that.
Yeah. Merlin does more good in his hands than it does on the board right now.
Nope.
Zach eventually going to have to run and check this new piece of ice on R&D because, I mean, you know he has a biotic. You know if he hits an agenda, it's coming out.
I don't know if I'm looking at HQ at this point. I mean, you know, you had a pretty lucrative R&D run. You know where the agendas are at this point. All right,
Daily
so DBS online.
And now, if you're John, do you put the agenda on the bottom?
I think both were non-agendas. Pop-up.
Oh, no, one looked like breaking news.
Oh, did I miss it? Okay.
I could be wrong. I mean, all day we've been able to see this left player's hand, but not so much the player on the right. It just looked like the little rounded picture that makes up an agenda. So, I mean, you really think if he hits this breaking news, right? If he has a breaking news, he doesn't need a biotic to get it out. He's up to 3 points. If somehow he draws an Astro script, suddenly he's back up to 5 and has a counter. Now, he did just draw an NAPD, but of course he's going to have to put that on the board, and Zach's not going to let that happen.
Yep.
Although I wonder if he has enough ice to make a server that can at least tax Zach enough that he can't pay the 1. Or the 4, rather, for NAPD. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, desperate situation here. I mean, the good thing going for John, he's got money. And, you know, the pop-ups have certainly kept him in this game. But, yeah, got the NAPD in hand and just not a lot of live draws here for John.
No. I mean, it's not really horrible for him to just leave the NAPD in hand. I mean, it's still only a 1 in 5 shot of hitting it. So has to get 4 credits, which normally I would say is not very difficult, but given that Zach has 5 plus the 4 Ghost Runner right now.
So installs over HQ.
I mean, you can't get rid of the NAPDs. May as well protect it.
Yeah. I think he's got a license acquisition in hand as well.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah, that's
okay.
what it is.
All right.
And that is, you know, that is the winning agenda for Zach at this point, either that or the NAPD. So, you know, can't blame John for trying to shore up. All right,
And Zach, I'm sorry.
Starting security testing runs all over again to get some money back up.
Yeah, I mean, Zach is in this awkward position, right, where Andy is normally at this point in the game able to run anywhere and everywhere she wants. And Zach can do that. He can get into any server he wants, but he does not have the freedom that he normally does to just run. He has to be a little more calculated in them because John has created these sufficiently taxing servers.
Yeah. This is also one of the grindier near-Earth hub matches I've seen. Looking at the timer on the bottom, right? How many times do you see Criminal versus NEH go to time?
Like, I expected kind of in those Grail, not the Grails, but the Glacier decks.
Ooh,
but I wasn't really expecting it out of this.
Going large over R&D. And, you know, that is a tax for Yogg. I mean, I don't imagine that, you know, he's going to get to the point where he needs that many more runs to find the last agenda. But 2 data sucker a turn, that's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, and the 3 off of, you know, actual toll booth.
Yeah.
And now suddenly Zach is down to 2 credits, 0 credits.
Wow.
So he went down to nothing in 1 turn.
Power of toll booth.
But it is an R&D interface, so
and
yeah,
there it
didn't
is.
matter.
There's the license acquisition.
All right, John almost coming from behind there, like really putting the pressure back on, not letting up, almost was able to rebuild something out of that. I think we're going to see John possibly come back for the Grand Championship. I would not be surprised. I mean, he still has some tough competition to weed through.
Because he's got
Ross
a battle
is still
back.
in it. Michael's still in it.
Yep.
So it's not going to be an easy road back, but
so
I think
Ross is going to be playing Michael.
Yep.
They're going to be in the losers brackets. The winner of that is going to meet John. And then they will get a shot at Mr. Cavus.
All right.
So very exciting game. Happy to bring that to you. Thanks for sticking with us again.